Identify what you don't know. Don't try and be an expert on every single channel and every element of every channel. It's too overwhelming. This industry is huge. It's evolving daily.
You're listening to the Keep Optimizing podcast to increase your traffic, improve your conversion rates, and grow your profits.
Hello and welcome. I'm Chloe Thomas, the host of this e-commerce marketing focused podcast. If you're not familiar with our format, each month we focus on a different marketing method. It could be email or SEO or Facebook ads, and each week I interview a different expert exploring the latest advice on making it work for you. This month has been all about online advertising. Whilst each individual channel, TikTok, Facebook, Google, etc., is undergoing their own changes, how you manage the whole advertising budget and activity is also changing hugely due to all those privacy changes and what that then feeds through. Yes, in this episode, we're talking attribution, we're talking tracking pixels, we are talking budget allocation, customer lifetime value, all those lovely big chunky things we've got to get our head around. And this is arguably where you can have the biggest impact by making good strategic choices about what you are choosing to spend your advertising budget on. My guest is going to talk to us about all of this, and he's also going to give you the 4 C's of how you decide where to put your marketing budget. I could tell you them now, but you should really listen to the episode and hear him describe them instead. So make sure you listen right to the end too, because his insider tips are super insightful, and then you'll get my take on it all as well. So stay tuned to the end. Let me tell you about Leaf. Leaf is a technology and data science company that offers managed performance marketing solutions for high-growth D2C brands, enhancing decision-making and media spend efficiency with Leaf Grow. In a post-attribution era complicated by GA4's revenue under-reporting and Google's third-party cookie phase-out, budget allocation can become a guessing game. Thriving brands now employ advanced conversion tracking, data warehousing, analytics, performance forecasting, cross-channel strategies, and creative execution for better attribution and insights. So prioritising retention and profitable growth requires a solid data and performance marketing strategy. To help you, Leaf is offering you a performance data audit to pinpoint gaps and optimise media spend, promising you smarter decisions and improved ROI across channels, campaigns, creatives and products. Find out more and get your audit at keepopt.com/leaf. That's keepopt.com/LEAF. In this episode, I'm chatting with advertising expert Wesley Hartley. Wesley is Chief Revenue Officer at Leaf, where he and the rest of the Leaf team are specialists in driving superior digital performance for D2C brands from ad click right the way through to purchase. Hello, Wesley.
Hi, Chloe. Thanks for having me on again.
Great to have you back on the show. How have you been since we last did an episode? Because it's not like anything's happened in the ad world in the last 12 months, so I'm guessing you haven't done very much.
Yeah, it's one of those unevolving, boring spaces where nothing changes. Yeah, really busy over the last 12 months, and really happy to say I've been spending a lot more of my time on our tech platform and product rather than focusing as much as my time in services. For people listening out there, we've got a performance intelligence platform, Leaf Grow, that helps make superior decisions on media spend allocation in a kind of post-attribution world that we live in. And so, yeah, I've been happily spending a lot of my time in that. Leaf started out as a technology business, stupidly in the music world, and then just like all the other naive young people that want to start a music technology business, they find out music's where technology businesses go to die. So had to focus a few years of my time on the services side of the business, but happily been spending a lot of it back in the tech side.
It feels to me like over the last few years in ads that if you want to be a successful ads team, whether you're an agency team or whether you're an in-house ad team, you first of all had to get very, very good at creative. And now you've got to get very, very good at tech and attribution. And it feels like that's the next bit you've got to nail if you're going to survive in ads at the minute. And I think I would say you're ahead of the curve with the fact you guys are working on it. It probably comes down to the fact you started off as a tech business in the beginning. Do you think it's like you couldn't have survived for another 5 years if you didn't build it?
Yeah, totally. We see the future. I mean, all agencies will be technology and data science businesses, or they won't be in business. That is the way that the industry has been moving at great pace. And we started out as a kind of a behavioral data science company and technology company. We built a music platform, but we were using, really naively, we thought everybody was doing this at the time, but using behavioral data about engagement within our app to then drive creative testing and audience mining. And then just, we approached marketing as a software engineering problem rather than a creative problem. And creative was just one of those things that we needed to be able to produce and test at a particular element. And it's funny, it's kind of gone full circle now, especially on Meta, where creative has become a real centerpiece again. I think creative got really lazy for a few years because there was a lot of data, a lot of insights. You could, do a lot of affinity, get a lot of affinity data, and there's so much data available. And then it just got kind of over a couple of years, it just seemed to vanish. And now creative has got to work much harder. It's kind of got to take the algorithm by the hand and get people to self-select because targeting is going broad. And even Google is moving more towards a creative first approach with PMAX asset stuff and starting to report on the performance of those assets and PMAX videos. So yeah, it's kind of, I think anybody with a creative brain could easily start an agency and just start testing. But I think actually the winners have been the really data smart brands and data smart companies. And that has just become exponentially more complex now. And I think overlay on top of that, now we're getting less data. We've gone past peak data. We're getting less data and we're getting more compliance kind of issues to deal with. And I think that has become, again, it's an engineering problem and it's a web development problem. It's not actually an advertising issue that you're going to solve with creative. So yeah, we firmly believe, fast forward 20 years and all agencies in the performance space are going to have to be kind of data science first.
And of course, the reason why everybody's had to get good at creative is, like you say, to feed the algorithm. And the reason why we're now all getting into data science and how to track results and all the rest of it is because fundamentally, we're running the ads because we want to drive a decent performance, which across this series over the last few weeks, we've been diving into individual channels. But of course, as good as you are at individual channels, if you're not making the right headline strategic calls, you can't turn those profits that we're all trying to turn. So for a D2C brand who is focused on profit at the moment, which all of you should be, by the way, what's core going to be to actually work out how we balance our budgets, how we balance our advertising channels over the coming months as we head towards peak and on into 2025 and beyond? I realise that's a massive question, Wesley. Where do we start?
Yeah, I mean, typically every time we onboard a new client, we've got to kind of break that question down. And we always start by understanding their strategic objectives as a business and what narrative does performance need to lend itself to. And that could be your conversations with your board, conversations with investors, and all those are going to be basically the tail that wags the dog. So, we can be saying to a client, we can hit this level of profitability and this return on ad spend that covers your spend, it covers your margins, and they might be like, but we just need to spend way more money and we need the volume, and that might not be profitable. And they might be like, it's okay, we've got enough cash in the bank, we can think about profitability later. And that's typical for a lot of scale, very fast growing scale up brands. 99 out of 100 of those brands come unstuck. And they come unstuck very quickly. They'll be like, oh, we've been growing month on month, and they're just going to hit a ceiling. And all of a sudden, then they come to us and say, well, we're now spending like 200 grand, 300 grand, but our ROAS is kind of disappearing. And now we're trying to raise some money, and that money that we're trying to raise is disappearing further into the future because we're past this and we just need to keep, and then we always start to, get back to basics, then understand profitability, understand their narrative, and then how to plug those unit economics into a strategy and a set of campaigns and structures within the ad accounts that are going to enable them to deliver that mix of volume and profitability. And I think having a couple of really key metrics can help with that. And I think one is a look back metric and one is a look forward metric. So understanding your TACOS, which would be your advertising spend as a percentage of your net sales. And that's a backwards looking metric. So you can have a 30-day look back to say, right, how much are we spending, 30-day rolling view on advertising, and what percentage is that as a cost of sales? And that's to protect your cash in the bank, so that you can always, you're not just hammering your cash and then realizing not only is it not profitable, but actually we're running out of cash, and actually we're spending like 30% of our net sales on advertising. So that's it's a guide internally for probably how to manage an agency. Just tell them, like, you can only spend this percentage of our net sales. So if you're growing our net sales, that percentage stays the same, but it just increases as the same part of a bigger pie. And then a look forward metric obviously would be lifetime value. And again, whether you can afford to become profitable over 6 months on the second or third purchase is as much about cash in the bank as it is about anything else. Like, most brands just cannot afford to go, oh yeah, we'll just become profitable further down the line. Very few brands can do that. They need to be as profitable as they can on the first purchase. So if they're going to do that, they really, really need to understand those unit economics. And a lot of the time, I see it being fudged a little bit. It's like, they've got their average order values on their website, vary from like 20 quid to like 300 quid for some categories. And they're like, yeah, our average margin's like 40%. And I'm like, it can't be. That average has got to have very dynamic kind of parts to it. And so that really affects then how we structure the ad campaigns, how we structure the channels to make sure that we are spending on collections, product collections or SKUs where we really understand all the margins that go into it, not just the cost of goods, but all the fulfillment stuff as well, especially if it's multi-territory, because the difference to selling a £300 item in the UK versus then selling a 40 quid item in the US, like the unit economics, when you're shipping from the UK, the unit economics are going to look very, very different. And that fundamentally affects how we would structure the budget and allocate the budget across what we call the 4 C's. Everybody loves a 4 something in marketing. So that's channel, collection, campaign, and creative. Being able to structure your ad account so you've got control of the budget across those 4 things is really, really crucial to driving profitability.
You've given us so much there, Wesley. How do I unpick it? So much good advice in there. I think I'm going to come right back to when you were saying about the backwards metric. I feel like we all spent about a decade embarrassed to look at a headline number, to go, right, that's our sales, that's our costs. Is it getting better or worse? It feels, because it's so blunt, it feels so kind of naughty to use that. Like, we're not trying hard enough. It's not drilled in enough. So when you say about looking back at that in this post-attribution world, do we try to drill it down to channels, or do you literally go whole company or whole territory? How do you use that as you're looking back over 30, 60 days?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be careful with the look back as well, because if in that look back metric you have, say, Black Friday, Cyber Monday was like 20 days ago, you will still be spending a lot of money today. But actually, that TACOS metric is really skewed because you've had that huge spike in revenue kind of 20 days ago. So we also look at 7 days as well, just to sense check that 30-day kind of rolling metric. Just to make sense of it, we would look at the channels and campaigns and creatives. All those are just variables across which we can move the budget to either drive more volume and or drive more efficiency. And again, it changes so much business to business. But what we see a lot of is Google being over attributed because they've got like a broader attribution window in there. Say it's a 30-day window compared to the max you can have in Meta. You can still see a 28-day thing, I think, but you got optimize on a 28-day view or click there. But it's a 7-day one. So, if you're spending money on brand search terms in Google and you've got a 30-day attribution window and your average order value is only like 40 quid, so most people are just going to buy it within 24 hours. They're going to see it, go, oh, yeah, actually, I want one of those. It's only 40 quid, bang, and they'll probably buy it. The majority of people within 24, 48 hours using a 30-day window. You're going to over-attribute the channel and you're going to start spending more money there and trying to push more money there, and your blended return on ad spend is just going to come down, and you need to be able to isolate all those variables to go, right, where have we increased spend and what has that done to our blended return on ad spend? What has it done to the channel return on ad spend? But what's it done to the blended? So the channel return on ad spend might go, oh, look, it's increased from like 5x to 8x. It's just because you're spending more money on brand search terms and you've got a 30-day attribution window. So it looks like, because you've got more impression coverage on, it just looks like it's performing better than it is. But if you see the actual cash in the till and that's not changed and your blended return on ad spend has come down, then you know that those changes weren't effective. They weren't incremental in driving additional revenue. And so you don't need this kind of to figure out attribution. I think that attribution conversation as well is for much, much bigger companies. And even then, they spend a lot of time. You know, we've done it with some huge global brand. They've spent a lot of time trying to figure out and produce an attribution model and like turning stuff off in certain regions and only spending on TV in some regions, or turning it off, turning this channel off. And what happens is they have a hypothesis, and instead of having a conclusion, they get 100 more hypotheses out of that thing. And the whole thing just keeps going and going and going. And then they give up. They just give up and they jump off the carousel and go, right, this is the attribution model. We'll just use that because we've done it for too long. And it might not even be accurate. They've just run out of time and patience.
Yeah, I think you've really nicely demonstrated there or explained there. One of the things that I think is the hardest to get our heads around as we move into this different world with different privacy regulations and different ways of dealing with attribution is we've got to get comfortable with the fact that we are never going to get to a point where we go, Google ads drives us 3 and Facebook ads drives us 5. And if we do this, we can increase it to 8. And we will always be attributing 5% back here. And the cookie window for that should always be 5. And the cookie window for this should always be something. It's more about collecting a repository of data that sits there in a way in which we can interrogate it to work out day to day the decisions we make with as much insight as we can. I mean, I know we can get it from the chances are this campaign should be a 5-day and this campaign should be a 30-day. And we can build some kind of rules in our brands. But what we're never going to get to is a point where we can spit out a 2-dimensional spreadsheet that has all the answers on it. It's got to be an interrogatable database to get to grips with understanding what's going on. And plus, as you said as well, Black Friday happened. So yeah, the margin's gone down. So this has changed. And we've got to get used to the fact, I suppose, that we're in a constantly changing landscape. And what we need is something at our fingertips that will give us the ability to find the answer when we need the answer, rather than expecting it to spoon feed us one metric that solves all our problems.
Yeah, it's just like the Enigma machine, you know, Bletchley Park. It's just testing millions of different variables all at the same time, and none of them exist in isolation from each other. So you might have changed the budget on Google and think that's the only thing you've done over the past 7 days, but you've no idea what's happening under the hood. And then we just on those particular ad platforms, and you've got your email, and then you've got seasonal demand, you've got the market, you've got the day of the week, you've got the hour of the day. There's so many variables. There's no way you're going to be able to isolate them all. And all you can do is make sure that you've gone piece by piece all the way from signal, being the conversion tracking stuff, right at the start of the journey, and all the way to the end, to make sure that the insights and the intelligence that you're getting out at the end are structured. So my point would be, see everything as an effect on the profit of your ad spend and the efficiency of your ad spend. Absolutely everything is going to affect it. So if you've got Meta and Google tracking set up through, say, Shopify, and you've just pushed the button or installed an app in Shopify, expect that stuff to break all the time. And if you're not looking at it and you've not looked at it for like 2 or 3 months, it's broken. I promise you, 100% of everybody who's listening to this, your tracking is broken. Even if you fixed it yesterday, it's broken today. And I think, there must be billions of wasted dollars in ad spend just because of broken signal, broken conversion tracking stuff. A great example is Google came out recently with Google Consent Mode V2 and basically said, if you don't do this, we're going to stop you doing any kind of personalized retargeting on Google after like April the 6th. Loads of companies haven't bothered to do that and are spending a lot of money on Google. So they're not doing any personalized retargeting. So if somebody's coming to your website, adding something to cart or a bunch of stuff to cart in different sizes and different colors and different brands or whatever, you were probably retargeting them with the exact thing that they looked at or added to cart, and now you are not. And lots of companies think that they've given it to the web devs and said, oh, sort this out, sort this Google consent thing. And they think that it's working. And it's just, in every single case, we've checked it out, 100% of the cases, it's not. And the compliance almost has gone backwards because they've gone, oh, this Google consent thing. Yeah, that sorted it all out. That's us being GDPR compliant with our tracking. And it's not compliant. And B, it's actually not sending a whole bunch of data to your GA or analytics platforms or ad platforms that it could be. So you're actually limiting yourself by not being compliant. So the companies that did the compliance stuff a couple of years ago and said, right, we'll have a cookie banner, it'll be fully interruptive. People either have to click like yes or no or reject or manage cookies or do something. They already had the pain a couple of years ago and got hammered and lost a bunch of data, and then they've been growing, and now they're getting more data because of the way that consent mode V2 works, and especially for Google. So they're getting more data. It's just more of that data is now hashed and anonymous, but they are now benefiting from that change. So, and that fundamentally affects the efficiency of your ad spend, which affects profitability of your ad spend. Personalized retargeting is very high performing and it converts very highly, and you don't need to spend as much money on it to drive a certain volume of revenue. And that is just sorting that one thing out, and that whole signal piece at the start, that is a big feature of profitability for running media spend. Imagine, so that's broken. It's broken on Meta, it's broken on Google, and it's not sending the right data into GA. And you're making your decisions based on that in GA. It's got all these knock-on effects. It's not attributing as many sales to Google or Meta as it should be, which fundamentally then affects their targeting. They all work on data-driven attribution models, and you're not giving them the very fuel that they use to then drive performance. On top of that, add in your structures of your ad accounts. So you are not controlling your spend against your product collections. You're controlling it in Meta, you're controlling it on interest-based stuff, but Meta automatically expands your interest-based targeting. So you're not learning anything from that, but you're not controlling your budget against your product collections. And those collections could be different margin and bestsellers versus, kind of low demand stuff. And then you're not controlling spend against products that have got volume and margin. You're not tailoring the creatives against those collections. And so you are feeding your lower funnel campaigns with more garbage because you're not controlling what people are clicking through to your website to engage with. What do you want to say as a brand to people, somebody who's never engaged with your brand before? What product do you want them to see? Because if you're spending 70% of your budget at the top of funnel, it's going to dictate how your bottom of funnel works. And then the end of that, so we call this signal strategy being how we structure ad accounts as part of a paid marketing strategy, the paid media bit of it, and then answers at the end. So if you've got good structures in your account and you're controlling budget against channel, product collection, campaign objectives, and then creative, and then your intelligence platform, your insights platform at the end is also showing you how those product collections are performing, how the channels are performing, how your creatives are performing, and how individual campaign objectives are performing. You can make much smarter decisions about how to allocate budget across those 4 C's. And that's how we run this whole post attribution thing. And you'll notice I've not talked about going, we're using UTMs and tracking templates to do all this. It's just now becoming meaningless. It's about, money in, money out, control budget against product and channel, and then you will have a much more solid way of pulling insights from those structures, and it's being fed by the maximum signal at the start. The most abundant and the richest of signals are feeding the ad platforms, your analytics platforms, and that will improve the validity of the data and your accuracy in decision making.
Nice. Thank you so much for all of that, Wesley. That has been fascinating, and I think it's given us all a huge amount to think about. You're now going to give us a few more things to think about, though, because we're going to head into the insider tips. Listeners, please remember to stay tuned right to the end of the episode so you don't miss out on Wesley's insider tips on advertising and my suggestions for more free resources to help you improve things even further in your business. Let me tell you about Leaf. Leaf is a technology and data science company that offers managed performance marketing solutions for high-growth D2C brands, enhancing decision-making and media spend efficiency with Leaf Grow. In a post-attribution era complicated by GA4's revenue under-reporting and Google's third-party cookie phase-out, budget allocation can become a guessing game. Thriving brands now employ advanced conversion tracking, data warehousing, analytics, performance forecasting, cross-channel strategies, and creative execution for better attribution and insights. So prioritising retention and profitable growth requires a solid data and performance marketing strategy. To help you, Leaf is offering you a performance data audit to pinpoint gaps and optimise media spend, promising you smarter decisions and improved ROI across channels, campaigns, creatives and products. Find out more and get your audit at keepopt.com/leaf. That's keepopt.com/LEAF. Okay, Wesley, so far we've gone deep into how we get to grips with the data we need to have to be able to make the right decisions for our advertising channels. Now you get to wow us with your insider knowledge about the whole world of advertising. So for the following questions, your answer can be anything to do with advertising, which of course does include everything we've already been talking about. Wesley, are you ready for these?
I'm ready. Hit me.
Okay, let's start with newbie advice. If we've inspired someone to take their first step, what do they need to know to give themselves the best chance of success?
Identify what you don't know. Don't try and be an expert on every single channel and every element of every channel. It's too overwhelming. This industry is huge. It's evolving daily. Beware, there's lots of advertising guru rubbish out there. You don't need to be a data scientist, or you don't need to have the entire history of marketing in the palm of your hand. Just think logically and follow the logic. I had a CEO the other day who said, I don't know anything about marketing. And then he went on to describe if he was going to do advertising in these ad accounts that we were auditing, how he would do it. And he got it spot on. Just by using sheer logic, he was like, surely I'd want to control my budget against like my product collections, and then I can tailor the messaging and I can scale up and scale. And we were like, yeah, that's exactly how it works, mate. Yeah. And he was like, all right, that's dead simple. What do we need you for? I was like, oh yeah, well, we do all the data science. But it's not as complicated as people make out. And there's no secret to this stuff, especially structuring paid media ad accounts. There's a very simple way that it should be done. Everybody else is chasing something that just doesn't exist.
Love that advice. Okay, once you've started, of course, you've got to keep optimizing. So what's your favorite way to improve performance?
Yeah, the signal, number one. By signal, I mean conversion tracking, all the tagging, all the tracking stuff, all the signal, the data signal that is fed to the ad platforms and your analytics platforms. If you don't have that right, you can have the best creative, the best product, the best website, you can have the best button pushes in the world in the ad accounts, and none of it will matter because you are not giving the ad platforms the very lifeblood that they live and thrive on, which is the data, the profile and information of your customers. Just make sure that's as abundant and as compliant and as rich in terms of customer profile and product detail information as possible, and it will make everything else work much, much better. It's kind of like in football, like let the ball do the work. So instead of you dribbling with the ball and trying to skin 10 players to score a goal, you can just pass it up the field, and it's much more efficient. And it's just let the ball do the work, let that signal do the majority of the work.
Cool. I love that. Okay. If someone listening wants to learn more, is there a cheap or free resource you would recommend?
I'm assuming everybody else is going to talk about ChatGPT for this. And obviously you can do a lot of research with that, but I think the cheapest and the freest resource there is out there is to get yourself into an ad account and have a look at how it all works. Understand the unit economics of how much you can pay to acquire a customer. Figure out the unit economics. That doesn't cost anything. So instead of figuring out what's the best structure for an ad account, just figure out how much you can pay for a customer profitably, and then build the structures of everything and build all your marketing around that single thing. And that doesn't cost anything to figure that out.
Like that. Yeah. Get your hands dirty. Get the spreadsheet out, do the maths, get into the tools, start learning that way. Like it. Okay. Finally, it's crystal ball time. Wesley, what's coming up in the next 6 to 12 months that we should be getting ready for? Dare you even try and predict this one?
I think some of the biggest impact that we've seen over the past few years have been things like iOS 14, GA4, Google Consent Mode version 2. It's all the compliance and the data privacy stuff. And I think that is going to continue having the biggest effect on what we're doing as digital marketers. So I would expect, Google's come out with Consent Mode V2. Meta, there's going to have to be something from Meta, because what it feels like is the EU is holding Google responsible for helping it make all of its users compliant. And they've been doing the same with Meta. It's just this whole cookie consent thing. That's a very Google-focused thing. So I'm assuming that there'll be something else coming from Meta, or there'll be something else coming from the EU, and actually a more robust rollout of privacy restriction stuff state by state in the US. There's been some, and every state's slightly different, but I can just see a more blanket gold standard approach coming to the US. That feels like more of a Wild West compared to the EU, but I think it will all start to follow suit, especially if Donald Trump gets in, because he hates these big tech firms, doesn't it? And that's an easy way of just being on the side of the people. Yeah, privacy restriction, let's just blanket roll that out.
Yeah.
So I'm expecting some big stuff to come in that world.
Interesting. We shall wait to see what actually happens. Wesley, we're very nearly at the end of the show though, so could you please let the listeners know where they can find you and your business if they want to get in touch?
Our website, www.leafgrow.io, or you could message me personally on Wesley at leafgrow.io. And our socials, probably not worth a visit. Just go to the website or just email me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Wes. It's been great having you on the podcast and catching up with you again. So thanks for sharing so much with us. As I said earlier, you've given us all so much to think about. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, cheers, Chloe. Thanks for having me on again.
Okay, so where do you start your thinking after all that? I think, the absolute must do is to make sure you've got that conversion tracking set up with as many signals as you can send back, be they events or whatever the platform's doing. The annoying thing is you have to get that set up everywhere. So you've got to do the Google Analytics, you've got to do the Facebook ads pixel, you've got to do the Google pixel, you've got to do it in whatever other platforms you are using, and make sure it's feeding as much high quality information back into the algorithms as you can, because that is what's enabling the algorithms to do a good job for you. And with ads these days, you have to make the algorithm your friend. You've got to give it the good, juicy data. Once you've got that in place, then I think possibly one of the next things is to decide whether you can cope and you can get what you want just by using those tools, or whether you need to get a specific intelligence tool, as Wesley was talking about, to help you manage all of this. I think as the ad budget grows, the need to have a combined reporting tool that works across all your ads and is giving you the right information about attribution, about customer lifetime value, that's got all those costs down to the individual product, down to the individual territory logged in, so you can actually work out which orders were worth getting and which ones weren't, and how you can then start doing that to manage your budget across those 4 C's that Wesley was talking about. So that was the channel. So is it Facebook or Google or TikTok or something else, or email? doesn't have to be ads, the collection, so which of your products, the campaign, so which campaign within the ad platform or other, and the creative, so which messaging, video, graphics, etc. you're using. As your budgets go up, as the complexity of your advertising and your marketing go up, you're going to need something that can give you those results across everything. And we've got to make that mindset shift. We've got to get our heads around the fact that the old days have gone and we're now operating in a very different world, arguably a post-attribution world, where we've got to take bigger decisions while still managing all the minutiae. I know, it's tough. It's tough. I hope you found that one insightful. Lots of answers, but also lots of questions there too. You can find the links to all those things we discussed, the full transcript of the episode, our notes about the episode and more at keepoptimizing.com. You can also use our special direct to episode short link to go straight there. Just put keepopt.com/the number of this episode into the URL bar and you'll go straight to the correct episode page. And when you get to the website, please do add yourself to our email list so you don't miss out on any of the things I share to help you improve your business. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Keep Optimizing podcast. Our whole set of episodes about e-commerce advertising is now live, so please do have a listen to them all. Scroll back up your podcast feed to find our deep dive into Google ads, which includes more on consent mode, our deep dive into Facebook ads, and a deep dive into podcast advertising, which is one I think you should all be taking a look at. There's huge growth in D2C brands advertising successfully on podcasts at the moment, so have a listen to that one too. You can either scroll up that feed or you can use the short link keepopt.com/advertising. Our next masterclass topic is offline marketing. So that may seem like an awfully long way from the world of online advertising, but we're sticking with driving new customers to your store. We will be talking about attribution again during Offline Marketing Month, and we'll be exploring different ways, different places you might want to spend your advertising budget that aren't Google and Facebook. Tune in next Wednesday to catch the first episode of all of that. And to make sure you don't miss it, make sure you're subscribed to us or following us on your favourite podcast player. And if you know someone who's particularly interested in how they can improve their customer acquisition metrics at the moment, please do tell them we are covering it in a lot of detail this year, as this show exists to help you and them improve their marketing. Have a great week and make sure you listen to the next episode so I can help you to keep optimizing your marketing.
Access everything Keep Optimizing at keepoptimizing.com. That's with an S, not a Z.
Don't forget to request your performance data audit from Leaf. Go to keepopt.com/Leaf now.